How's everybody doing? I need a little bit more energy now. How's everybody doing? Woo! That was an amazing, action-packed thriller. I was looking at people's faces every now and then to see their reactions. They was jumping, they was enjoying it, and I was enjoying it too. Unfortunately, like Alex said, Billy Fox and Bobby Banks aren't able to make it tonight. But we have some amazing gentlemen here that have worked with John for years, and they are truly experts in the field. And so please give one more round of applause for them. And just to tell y'all how much of an expert they are when it comes to Mr. Warren Drummond, right? He's worked on many films within the industry, such as King Richard, Too Fast, Too Furious, Fences, Creed 3, The Amazing Spider-Man as a storyboard artist. I would believe if you looked up storyboard artists on the internet, his face would pop up.
Probably.
And Mr. Hedgepath, Gregory Hedgepath, he's done amazing work within the industry as well when it comes to films such as Twister, Poetic Justice, Selma, when it comes to The Incredible Hulk, Straight Outta Compton, Hustle and Flow. These are experts in the industry, and we're honored to have you sitting here with us today. It really means a lot.
So much. Thank you.
So I wanted to discuss today, right, the film that we just saw, Four Brothers, and the impact it had with John Singleton's career and legacy, and how you all collaborated together in order to make it the success that it was. So my first question to y'all is, considering y'all were on the panel at Too Fast, Too Furious, right? How was the transition from making Too Fast, Too Furious to Four Brothers, and how did John approach that transition?
Here's a question. Has anyone heard of a Western called The Sons of Katie Elder? When I read the script, I was like, this is Katie Elder, because that movie was about four brothers. Their mom dies. The people after their property. One of the brothers gets killed, and there's a tough guy. So there you go. Kind of similar.
Yeah. And how did John approach the transition? Was it quick? Was he full speed? Did he take a break at all? What were y'all's thoughts?
We filmed Too Fast, Too Furious in 2002. Four Brothers went into pre-pro 2004, I think.
It came out 2005.
Yeah. So he was hyped. He was working with Mark Wahlberg. He was working with Tyrese again. He loved Tyrese to death. Andre 3000. And he was excited. And certainly, Wahlberg was very hot. Mm-hmm. Mark Wahlberg, oh, you want to fight? Okay, come on. Go right now. Yeah. That's any...
Yeah, any Mark Wahlberg movie.
Any Mark Wahlberg movie.
Mark Wahlberg as Malcolm X. We've been had. We've been took. We've been led astray. All right? All right. You got a gun? I got a gun too. Say hi to your mother. Right?
Okay. Everybody loves Mark Wahlberg. Well, this was filled with action, right? From car chases, car crashes, robberies, fist fights, basketball game, hockey game. There was a lot. And so what were some of the challenges that you faced in order to create this movie with all of that going on at once?
Well, okay. Well, I can say sound-wise, when I supervise a movie, I'm in charge of the crew, so the sound crew. That means the dialogue editors, the effects editors, background, Foley, all those people, and kind of supervise the mix. So, but when I work on a show, I always try to get my hands dirty on something. So for me, the two scenes I remember cutting are the car chase scene and the cars and all the guns, and then the shootout at the house. So... I worked on some shootouts before, but I hadn't done one all by myself. And I think it took me about a week and a half, just to do the shootout, because there's so much detail in that thing. And also, we were trying to make a statement with the guns. So each gun represented the character of the person who was shooting. So one guy's gun, and to be honest, I'm not a gun aficionado. I'm kind of a gun sound nut. But as far as like which guns are exactly right for a scene, I'm not so precious about that. So we made sure one guy's gun, was firing a lot faster. It sounded like it would cut right through you. The other guy's gun was more percussive. Tyrese's guns had a certain sound. Anytime he picked up a gun, it tended to have a certain sound. So that was one of the things that we did for that scene. And so I don't know if I'm going astray answering your question, but it was some of the things that we had to handle. So and I remember Lorenzo Di Bonaventura, who was the producer, was on the dub stage, and I don't remember if how long he was there, but he was there the day that we played back the reel with where the house gets shot up, and he had just been in a car accident like the week before, and so when we did the crash with the Volvo hitting the van, he said, "Not loud enough." I said, "Okay." And then we threw some more stuff at it, put some more sound, bam, not loud enough. Oh, okay. So we started doing some tricks where we started pulling down sounds around it, like the music. It's a crescendo moment, so we had to be kind of careful. If we pulled it out too much, it would be obvious what we were doing. We were pulling things down, pulling some sounds out, and then bam, and he said, still not loud enough. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute. These speakers can probably put out maybe 140 dB if you're trying to hurt somebody, and probably the crash was like 160 dB. So I realized we're never going to be able to make the sound the way he remembered it. Plus, there's the biggest sound in a car accident actually is your body being jostled, because your body makes a sound when it's hit, and you can't recreate that in a theater. Hopefully not. Anyway. Yeah. So that was one of the things. And also regarding that scene, do you have your
we actually
laptop queued up?
So there's a specific scene that we were actually talking about earlier.
We just happen to be talking about it. Beforehand, you asked me if there were any scenes I remembered, and it's funny because for me, this has been, 18 years? Is that right? Is that the right math? Whatever it's been.
2005, any math?
Whatever the math is.
18, okay.
Yeah, okay. So I actually had forgotten a few scenes, and I'd forgotten some things, some things that happened in the movie. So in this scene, though, what I did remember is that we had two editors on this. We had Billy Fox and also Bruce Cannon did some work early on. So I remember talking to Bruce about this scene. I think he was working on it. So the way this scene is constructed, you don't have to roll yet, but what we're going to see is he's going to get shot. Mark Wahlberg runs out, and then you're going to see the van drive in, the blue van drive up to us, cut to some other business. Then we see it down the street. At the corner, and we see it kind of driving in and stops. It actually kind of drives in and stops like 3 times. Drives in, then it drives in sideways, and the way they shot it, they then did a close-up of the side shot of the van, and then I guess they did a reverse angle on the other side of the door so you could see the guys get out. So the problem was the way it was originally cut was van comes in, blah, 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 blah. Van goes to the side. Then we see it go in this way. And then we cut to the side with the door. And then the door opens and they come out. So I think it just barely comes in on that angle or whatever. But I told him, I said, the problem is it comes in this way, then it comes in this way. And sound-wise, I'm going to be panning this way and then panning this way. And when I tried it, it called attention to itself, which you don't want to do. You want to let the cut flow. So what I asked him to do is flop the previous shot of the truck coming in this way, so it just comes in this way, and then you cut to the next cut, which is the door. And the only way you can tell is when it drives in, there's no door handle. Then when they cut to the door opening, there's a door handle, and the door opens. So we're just going to play it for you so you can see it. We don't need sound, really. Sound's overrated. Well, it's playing off of YouTube, so it's not going to be good. I wanted that gun to sound especially mean. Drives in. You see it drive in there. Drives in. Boom. So that's very quick. But that quick drive in actually was it driving in that way. That's fine. That's fine. So it's very quick. You almost wouldn't notice it.
Yeah,
But,
no, but
if it had been flopped the other way, you really would have noticed
the
it.
level of detail
Yeah.
is incredible.
And I was going to add, now that you say that, the car driving scene, I remember I was always frustrated with the sound of it, and especially when the car flips over and it skids on its roof and then it stops. I heard tonight and I was like, well, it didn't really suck. but in my mind, I'm sure with you, you're always trying to make it better.
Yes.
I was thinking, I was looking for like one defining sound. It could be the scrape of the thing spin, and I didn't quite get it, but it sounds okay. But we're always trying to step up our game, and when John presented us with something like this, there was a lot of work to do.
No, of course. And he said it sounds okay, but I thought it sounded great. I jumped. And I think everybody in the audience agrees with me. Like, it was great. And we all appreciated it because it impacted us within the film and watching it. So how did you and John approach setting the tone? How did you make the sound the tone of the film in that regards? What thoughts or how you approached it?
Yeah, so we didn't really, he didn't really preview a lot of sounds with me, but we talked a lot about the scenes. And he talked about what is important. And the way that most people at a certain level kind of approach sound is it's sound is like the lens of a camera. There's just like there's lighting involved, there's focusing, you can rack focus, you can do the same with sound, you can, pull things out. If you want to focus on something, you can bring it in and make it mono and pull everything back. So we talked a lot about that kind of stuff. What was important at a certain moment, like for example, I had forgotten all about it, but in that end scene, when we get to the ice block and the guys are cutting it, I remembered now that we had the sounds of the chainsaws. And I said, hey, can we start them in the surrounds and bring them to the front, even though they're not really behind us, but I wanted to make it have more impact. And it did. It just sounded bigger. It just like fills up the room for a second. It's, whoa, wow, and then it comes in front of us. So we do a lot of cheating in sound. So we were also discussing, what things we could get away with, what, like when they go into the it wasn't a crack house, where the people are partying and they say, popos are here, like what did we want to hear when we go in there? And there's a lot of detail about what's going on the side. And again, it's seasoning, it's sweetening. So if you notice it, it's like if you notice, oh, that's cardamom. I love cardamom. Oh, you put a little sugar in it. You don't want people doing that with your stew. So we try to do it in such a way so that you don't notice it. We're tricking your ears.
Got it. And it seems like there was a lot of collaboration on all efforts. You said you talked with the edit, and they allowed you to switch it from moving one direction to the other. And then going back to collaboration when it comes to the visual aspect of it, right? How did John approach this film, and how did his unique style and visual style impact this film?
Let's see. Well, the hardest thing I had to do was, at the same time, somewhere after I started on the movie, John wanted to do a video game to do a Snoop Dogg video game.
Really?
Yes.
A Snoop Dogg video game?
Yes.
Okay.
If you go online and look up, there was I think like a 2005 Video Game Awards show. They show footage of it. So John wanted me to work on that. And we flew to Paris to talk to people at Ubisoft. So I was working on Four Brothers in the daytime, and then I work on the storyboard for the game at the night.
Wow.
I was really tired, so I had a friend of mine to help me out doing some finishes. That was hard. Visually, he would, as I said earlier, John would shot list everything. And I know that the first thing I did was the opening scene inside the car of the assassins and the dice.
Yeah.
I remember
when
he wanted,
snow?
yes. I remember that was a big thing that he wanted to have, the dice scene. And that was a big thing. So we went over the store. He had photographs of the stores. We went over locations. And I remember that was the first thing that we did. The biggest scene for me was the car chase in the blizzard. Because he said, John always had this great enthusiasm. He said, hey, man, you know what, man? There's never been a car chase in a blizzard. It's like,
There's
you're
probably
right.
a reason for that, right?
And there you go. So that was fun. He would also shot list that, and it also let me come up with certain camera angles. But there's one shot in there. There's a shot in there where you're behind the two cars, and the camera pulls up as you see them go further away. That shot's from Star Wars, the original. There's a shot on the Death Star in the final fight on Star Wars: A New Hope. I think behind an X-wing and a TIE fighter, and John knew that we're both film geeks, so he said, "Hey man, remember that shot in Star Wars where?" I said, "Oh yeah, okay, the TIE fighter," and that shot is pretty much it. That was a shot. Just like in Baby Boy, there's a shot with the Snoop Dogg character. Oh yeah, somebody storyboard's there. The shot in Baby Boy with the Snoop Dogg character being chased by Tyrese and his friend, low angle shot pulling them. Star Wars, Han Solo running through the Death Star, low angle, as he and Leia are being chased in Chewbacca. So John would take a shot from another movie sometimes and just put a new thing on it because you can't tell if it's a totally different environment. So he just liked, as usual, dynamic angles. Oh, and also the second unit director was a gentleman, a friend of mine named Doug Coleman. So Doug shot a lot of that car stuff.
Okay.
The other thing was that the movie was shot mostly in Canada.
Yeah, Canada and Detroit.
Right. So Detroit, they got some shots, location, just some exteriors, but I think most of it Canada. So I did the hockey game. I did the opening. I did the big car chase. The big gunfight at the house was done by the guy the person that they hired up in Canada.
Okay, I heard.
So I saw it, I was like, damn, I wish I had done that scene.
Now you storyboarded the snow and everything, because I heard the snow was natural. There was no added snow. Is that true?
They added some, right?
They added some.
Certainly the snow that's falling is added.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, but there probably was some on the ground.
Yeah, because like that final shot after they head over to the car, shoot the guy, and then walk away in the snow. That was all CGI.
Okay.
So they added.
Yeah. Well, these are some of your storyboards right here for the film. Do you mind just walking us through some of them, just to show the process and how John was visualizing this film?
Let's see. He wanted to have a lot of cars banging into each other. That was a big feature of it because they're driving on ice. So a big part of it was he didn't want to have it where they're just driving really cool and everyone makes these really super nice turns. He wanted crashing all the time. So that's why there's a lot of.
Can I ask you a question about this? Because I just remembered now that we did Too Fast, Too Furious before this, right? And there was that whole the demolition derby where they first revealed Tyrese.
Yes.
So did that have anything to do with his thoughts on when he did this?
I don't remember. I don't know offhand. Possibly. But I know he just wanted to have something that we hadn't seen before. So you'll see he wanted a lot of scraping and banging, and you can go ahead to next page.
And I'm curious. Yeah. While you were working with John, did you ever have creative freedom that impacted his decision making in scenes when he was shooting?
Oh yeah, no, John would plan everything, but he always let people put their input in it. Just like he would talk to Greg about his sound design. If Greg came up with something hot, John would put it in. John didn't have an ego. As far as, in the end, it would still say, directed by John Singleton. Any director. But a lot of people, they want to have things only their way, and John treated everybody like family and everyone as a collaborator. So if you had something that he liked, he put it in. He was very open, very open.
That's beautiful.
Keep that in mind. Always be open. But plan also. So any other pages? You could go. There you go. So he had certain bits in there that he wanted, and I'm not sure if he came up with the plow, but
And how
in
long
there.
did it take you to make these for John? What was his time?
If I can,
timeline?
it's hard to remember because the first thing we do is talk about it, and then I'll sketch it out, and then I'll send him the sketches, then we'll do a tighter version of it. So these were fairly loose. That they're not super tight, but they're tight enough. So as far as how fast, if I did finished frames, 15 frames per day, maybe on certain things. Trying to remember on certain days, he'd have to have things. You know, you may do 30 frames some days, 10 frames, but by and large, you just got to keep it going out. Yeah.
Can I ask you another question? Because I've never asked you about this, but when you're doing a storyboard, I don't know if I guess you do it digitally, but do you do it like, do you go through multiple iterations? Like, does it take you like, one try to do it, or do you get it on 3 tries? Or I mean, how does that work?
One shot Warren, I guess.
There we go. Thanks for not dropping. See ya.
That's talented.
There's always iterations. There's always a director will say that's not quite it, or that's better than what I thought of. And you're always going back and making changes. It could be little changes. It could be, by the way, this was in the pre-digital days when I used paper and ink and pencils. So if he wanted to have something wider or tighter, I'd have to either draw it all over again, or you go to a copy machine and you make a bigger version of something. Digital now, I just select. It's so easy. I select, I expand, I contract. I can just turn things around. I can, you want it from the other side? I flip it. But back then, you do everything by hand.
Would John be very cognizant about lenses? What lens he would use? He
might say a long lens, a wide angle every so often. Certain directors are really detailed. They want to have. There was a film I did where the guy said, the stunt coordinator said, do it on a 400 lens. I was like, what's that look like? I don't know. So I had to, he worked it out. He had this little viewfinder, and I got to see what a longer lens that's the Star Wars shot, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
And it's in the movie. It's in the movie, so that was pretty accurate.
Well, we'll have a question and answer at the end, so hold that question, but we're going to get to it first.
Okay.
But no, these are amazing. We'll get back to this.
Okay.
Because I'm curious what he has to ask.
Okay.
But I wanted to move on really quickly because I had a question. You were talking about pre-production, but pre-production and sound. Okay. How much planning did you do when it came to, after you read the script, right? You have a sense of what is going to be in front of you. How much planning did you do in pre-production with the sound team? And then did that ever change once you got into post-production? You throw it out the window or you kept it? What did that look like?
Well, because I've been doing this a long time, there's like zero prep, and we just pull all the right sound effects. No, I'm kidding.
We're funny.
Yeah. Leg slapper. Preparation, yes, we did do some. I'm trying to think because we did it differently during different movies. Were you okay? Well, wait a minute. Ask the question again because I started going down.
So, how much planning did you do in pre-production, considering your post and the sound editing department?
Got you. So, I was going the wrong way. So, what I do is I tend to read the script first time for story only, and just not thinking about memorizing the characters or anything about the story, just to get a sense of it. Then I'll read it a second time, then I go through and I make detailed script notes. So what I like to do is I will get the picture department to give me, I forget what you call it, like a scene list. They have a scene list where it's got in Excel format where it's got scene,
Day-to-day.
take.
the day-to-day, the
Well, no, I think that's something you guys get for production or something. But this is something the picture department makes. They just go through. It's almost like they take your storyboards and just, make a list of what everything is. Because sometimes scenes get moved around, so they'll move it around on list. But I put that in an Excel format. Then I have a column for, dialogue, effects, backgrounds, Foley, design, and then I'll make notes in those columns. So as you go down the list, you'll see this checkerboard of notes, dialogue, do this here, no, do this here, blah, blah, blah. And then I will put the notes in Google Docs so that the picture department can get it and give them access to it. And I'll say, if you're going to add something, just do it in a different color or something like that. But that's how we kind of talk back and forth. So I start out by doing that, giving it to the picture department, and they can, assuming they go through the list, they can tell me if I'm going down the wrong path with something, with some of my notes,
Yeah. So once again, going back to the collaboration is key. Talking with all the different departments. Okay. Now I wanted to ask, in regards to John Singleton's feedback. Right? Maybe some things he didn't like. How did he approach feedback and give it when things might have not gone like he liked, or maybe just had a different vision? How did he approach feedback?
Different with you.
John was just an easygoing cat. He just had enthusiasm. So if he wanted something changed, he would just say, can you just make it more like this? He didn't say, what the mother? He didn't, that wasn't, no. And you don't want to be around someone like that anyway. But John he knew he was hiring talented people. He knew that Greg was great. He knew Bob was great. He knew his editors. He knew whoever he hired for stunts knew their job. So he didn't have it where they'd say, oh man, you keep making the same mistake. He didn't have, because we knew what to do. He knew that I knew how to do storyboards. I'd been with him for a number of years, so he just hires good people. Then if there's a change, you just make a change. There wasn't any big thing. It's not like you're being punished and sent to
Have you
school.
worked with filmmakers and directors who were putting down the hammer when you were giving feedback?
I did work on this movie Ad Astra. But I was not the sole guy. But there was a chase. That's on the moon, and I worked with the second unit director who had never worked with a storyboard artist. So I've been around for a while, and he would explain things I'd do him, and he'd see it, and I felt like an idiot. Like, did I just start doing storyboards last week? Because we just did not click, and he had done a lot of big movies, like a lot, but we just didn't click. And he'd say a shot, he couldn't seem to explain a shot a certain way, and I would get really frustrated by it. And he'd get, I'm like, all right, dude. And he was, he was who he was, but then I was not the only person that had that issue. I'll just say that. Okay. But he's good at his job, but everyone can't communicate. Most people that I've worked with are great. Ron Howard, great. Rupert Wyatt, great. A lot of people have been just easy to communicate. As a matter of fact, most people are easy to communicate with. Just every so often you get that where the wires do not cross at all.
Got it. No, that makes sense.
And working with John on the dub stage is a little different. He's still not that guy, like you were saying. He doesn't get all upset. He's very mellow. But the thing he would do is he would be on his laptop, or maybe, I don't know if he had a BlackBerry at that time, but usually on his laptop, playing video games or something. And we're like mixing away, and he's just like headphones in, and then he would stop. He'd say, wait, back. Okay, there. Okay, play. He always do this play. And so then we all of us still who worked on the dub stage with him, we'll still do once in a while, play, because it's an homage to John. Play. Yeah, right there. I want you to do blah, 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 blah. And he'd stand up and he'd pace around, and we'd work on it, and then we'd get what he wanted, and he was cool, and he'd sit back down, get on the computer again.
He brought a lot of energy to the team.
Yeah, he was always up, and ready to do the job.
He would, you know what? He did have this playful way that he would push me. He might say something like, you know, Peter Ramsey could do it another way. And for those of you that don't know, Peter Ramsey was his first storyboard artist for his first 5 movies.
For Boys in the Hood.
Yes, he later got an Oscar for co-directing Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So he would say, you know,
Missed it by that much.
missed
didn't
it by
you?
that, you know, and then he would say, you know, well, Peter would do this, and I would go, you know, Steven Soderbergh is a more successful director. You know what I mean? So we just, because they started out around the same time, so, you know.
Interesting. So I have one last question, and then we'll go to the audience. But what would you say made this film stand out, or just different from the rest of the films that John created and made?
Yeah, well, I can say to me, this has always seemed like his most commercial film. And I think it has some of the best action in it. I mean, Too Fast and Furious was great for all the car driving, but this has such a variety of action. It's just always kind of stuck with me. As I was telling you, I haven't seen it since 2005. And so that's why I've forgotten some scenes. But, you know, I still remember being on the dub stage and just we were excited mixing it. We were having that great a time. So to me, it's just, you know, it's commercial and yet edgy in a good way.
Yeah, I think it has a pretty much a good combination of what John liked, as far as it was a movie he got hired on, so he didn't write the script, but it had the street element, it had violence, it had a very male energy, because John, most of his movies were male-dominated films anyway, so it had that, and it had Tyrese. Certainly.
And it had
He
time.
likes certain people.
Okay.
And Taraji.
And Taraji,
And
right.
I think this was the introduction of Sophia, in America.
Yeah, I think that may have been like maybe her first film.
Certainly her first big thing, because I think she was like a TV novella person before that.
Right.
Mostly, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And also Garrett Hedlund, you know, the brother who gets shot, you know, his career kind of took off after this. I'd never heard of him before this, but now I see his name a lot.
He's a good actor too.
Yeah.
And John just has a knack of, you know, finding amazing acting talent and promoting them, and how he's done that his whole life. It's just like an ability he has. And I think, like with what you were saying, when he picks his crew, he picks people and we become family, and he just trusts us. So a lot of the time, you know, he'll just leave us to mix the movie. He won't be there, and he'll come and see what we've done and give us his notes, you know, and sometimes he'll just be there all day. So, but he had faith that he could, you know, go take care of his dry cleaning or whatever, you know, or go to lunch. He did a lot of lunches.
And I think that speaks to
and
y'all.
dinners and breakfast anytime he wanted.
And he had to go buy Golden Apple, get his comics.
Oh, get his comics. Yeah. Comic,
That was our hangout
total
place.
comic
Love
book
Golden
nerd. This dude and that dude.
I go there to this day. Love Golden Apple comics.
That's beautiful. That's
jam.
beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Sponsored by.
I definitely wanted to open it up to the audience. And I know the gentleman right here in the middle had a question. And if anybody else wants to have the question, we have 2 people that have mics. And you can definitely ask and raise your hand.
Yeah, so while I was watching that car chase, that those high angle shots were really, really amazing. And hearing you talk about them being the TIE fighter from Star Wars, I mean, they had the benefit of it being just models. I was wondering, because this was before they had drones or whatever. I mean, was that just a crane, or do you have any idea how John
A
captured
helicopter,
that?
maybe? You think?
Well, you know what? It was funny. I was noticing those shots for the first time. Even though I cut the scene, I wasn't really thinking camera angles, because, you know, it was just following a car straight. But tonight I was looking at them, and it was too low to be a helicopter. But yet, if the street was slick, how could they have a crane? So I'm not sure what they did.
James Cameron and T2 had similar helicopter shots. So
Down the
long
middle of a
lens-
street, middle of a street though, because there's poles and stuff,
That is true.
cars and.
The Singleton Magic.
Let's go back in time right now.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful. And
All right, we'll find out now.
And I started flying drones in 2014 and did it for quite a while, but just that, it looks like a drone shot, but I don't think there were drones back then.
no.
So, yeah.
I'll have to find out now.
Any other questions? Anyone want to ask? Don't be scared now.
Yeah, you'd spoken a little bit about the differences in, you know, like storyboarding when you've got to do everything on pen and paper and storyboarding now where like the technology's there and you can
Yes.
just kind of round it out. Could you speak a little bit more about like the differences in like working in films where you had to do everything on paper and like now what your process is like working on that?
The easiest thing, and thank you very much. The big difference is it gets through the pipeline, meaning director, the editors, stunt people, whoever. With digital, okay, back in the old days, back in the when we had Clone Wars, you had to. We made copies of the work, and the copies could be distributed to different departments. But first, if you're working at home, then you had to fax your work over, and people are like, what the hell is that? You fax, and the world turns backwards, and demons come out from the. Yes, we had back in the old days. You had to, if we weren't working out of the production office, you'd fax the things over. Pain in the ass. Plus, I didn't have a single sheet fax, so I had to have the roll-up fax. So when you get and receive, it's just a nightmare. But the biggest thing is digital. You're able to I can sketch it out, save it, send the file to a director, stunt coordinator, DP, get it right away. So much easier. It's so much easier. I can, if they want it frame by frame, for example, I've done some MCU projects, and you can send the frames directly to the editor, and they can, if they're filming something, they can fit the storyboards in the shots. They have to be filled in. So that's happened. So that's another big thing about the digital. It just makes things easier. The thing that I had, though, if you remember my storyboards in this thing, it's more like a comic book. Every frame is not, I have a frame here, I have a big frame there, a little frame, I have overlapping frames. So I could be more illustrative back in the day when I was just drawing things kind of like a comic book. Now, though, I use a program called Storyboard Pro to start with. Some people go right into Photoshop. They use Manga Studios. They use Procreate, all these different types of software. But whatever people use, you have the same aspect ratio. So whether you're going 185, 239, 235, or whatever, everything's consistent. So every frame is consistent. So it takes away the artsy part of it, which is fine, but it just makes things so much easier. And you can make, as I said before, you make changes so much easier. You don't have to erase it. You just erase by just erasing. Yeah. And you can take a person on this side of the frame, select them, move them over, and that's so easy. Yeah. Or you can, when I have them on my monitor, I'll have a number of pages up on the same monitor. I could take a frame out of here, put that frame on this page, put that frame on this page, erase, move things up. It
makes your job a lot easier.
Yes.
It makes.
So I was just wondering. So when you had to do it back in the pencil and paper days, or pen and paper, whatever. So you would draw the frame, then you'd have to fax it, then they get it, and they make copies and distribute it.
If I was working at home,
yeah, if you're home,
I'd have to do that. Yeah, because at home, if I'm working at the production office, just go to the copy machine, and you got to do the same thing. But I would still have to make copies of it, whether it was just the sketch version or the tighter version of it, and then you have version number 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
Because I was wondering, so somebody has to approve it or make changes, blah, 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 and all these different people. So how much longer would it take to get approved, as opposed to just firing it out everybody digitally and then you get an answer back? But
usually you just get approval from two people, usually just the director or the DP. Okay. They're the main people. Yeah. I didn't have to worry about producers, really, by and large. Just if the director liked it, or if I'm working with the DP and they liked it, then everything's straight.
Straight.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions? There's one right here, and I think there's one in the back.
I was wondering, for the sound, back then we were talking about like storyboard working with pen and paper for sound. Did you also did you like record to tape or an analog format, or what were you doing?
You mean like when we were recording specific sound effects for the show?
Yeah, and you were talking about also, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, back then, the recording formatted choice was DAT. Some people did have stereo Nagras, because they have these great preamps, and if it's something that you want to make, kind of distorted or loud, they're great for that. But mostly everything was on DAT, and we put together a library and then bring it in, digitize it, put it on hard drive, then get rid of the DAT after that.
Can you ever ask, what's that? Sorry.
We've got 1 million of them! Digital audio tape.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you a dad? Is that what that humor comes from?
Dad jokes
Definitely.
are
Yes,
welcome.
I am. And he's like, oh, come on, Dad, please don't.
And my my daughter's always saying, "Dad, you're not funny." Meanwhile, her friends would come over, they're dying laughing. Right? She'd like roll her eyes and like, "Oh, okay, maybe he's funny."
Don't get us.
No.
We got one question in the back.
Okay. I had one quick question and then one that may have a little more breadth to it. So the quick question is, I had forgotten this film. I'd actually forgotten I'd seen it, but how much I liked it. So it was cool to see it again. Was there or wasn't there actually, was Paramount supporting a sequel for this? Because I scrolled through from 2010 all the way up to now, and they said maybe.
Maybe Tyrese mentioned it on his Instagram
And then there was that
about
too.
5 brothers.
They talked about it right after.
And the
we-
same team were like
Yeah.
working on it.
They talked about it right after the film came out, and John was talking about 5 brothers. I was like, is it one of them
Is it
dead?
one
You got to
dead?
go back to 4 before you go to 5.
Right.
So they talked about it, but
I know. I saw that Tyrese posted 2 years ago that it was in the works. So,
Oh, 2 years.
And Mark
well,
Wahlberg.
who knows?
Okay, because we will stay tuned. Okay, and then my second question. So I was at the Pan-African Film Festival last month in Leimert Park, and there was a tribute to John Singleton there as well, and specifically Snowfall, but all of his whole body of work. And one of the things that struck me was everyone that spoke said that John Singleton would give anyone a chance, like whether or not you were shooting on his block or you were actually, someone who came in for the casting of the film, or you wanted to learn something as far as the technical aspects. So my question, and so what that impressed upon me was that, though his body of work was cut short, that seems to be like that will be a large part of his legacy as we remember him. So my question to you is, yes, do you agree with that being like a large aspect of who he was? And also what other things would you say will be his legacy to other filmmakers? How?
I could say that personally, yes. And by the way, I love your hat. You give me a 1975 album cover vibe. It's really cool. It's really sweet. John started a lot of people's careers. He didn't start mine, but he put so much into my career. He gave it a huge boost when I came from New York to LA. He was always there. He got me on Baby Boy, even though I was not in the union. He got me on the movie, and it worked out.
Wow.
He was a great person to start with, because you want to have someone, if it's going to be your first film, let them be a good person.
Mm-hmm.
Let them not be a screamer. Let them not be someone who takes forever, and they're not like the director that needs to do 50 takes, and you're on. He was just he prided himself on getting a lot of setups in a day. but he was just someone that you can just talk to. Greg?
Yeah, I mean, for me, just the way I started working with him was pretty amazing. It was totally unexpected. So I'd heard about Poetic Justice. What happened was this guy I knew from Cleveland or someplace called me up and said, hey, you should go talk to so-and-so. He's in John Singleton's office, a guy named Dwight. And you should go talk to him. And maybe you can get to meet John. Went talk to Dwight. Dwight introduces me to John. And John was, he was cool. He was very nice. And then he found out that I had worked at Lucasfilm. I worked up north at Lucasfilm for 6 years. And he said, oh, my favorite instructor, Tom Holman, is from there. He failed me, and I had to take the course over again. He gave me an F, and he was like proud of that. But he took the sound course again and passed it. But I think Tom Holman influenced him. But I'm saying all this to say that, so when I got to interview for the film, I thought I was just going in and interviewing as a sound editor. So I went in there. I was very relaxed because, a sound editor, they usually don't care. I thought it was a great honor. And so I'm just telling them some of my theories about sound or ideas about sound and things that we could do in the film and joking around, having a good old time. And so at the end, John and the producer talked to each other, Steve Nicolaides. And then Steve says, well, I think I speak for everybody if I say we'd like to offer you the job to supervise the sound of this film. Would you like to do that? And that was like a big, oh, shoot moment because it was like somebody said, we'd like you to drive the space shuttle to the moon. Yeah. You're just not expecting that, right? So he said, yeah, doing the supervised movie. And I said, definitely, sure, yes, most definitely. I would love to supervise this film. I have so many ideas. I had no idea what I was doing. But I knew I had a group of friends, sound editors and other supervisors. And sure enough, they gave me a hand and just showed me how to organize stuff. I already knew how to edit and how to work with people, but just like the mechanics of some of the things, I just had to get some of the loose ends tied up. But John trusted that I'd be able to do that, and he, gave me my start.
Wow.
Yeah.
There was a magazine where I remember John named you his secret weapon.
Oh, get out.
There was somewhere I remember reading it, and my first thought was I thought I was his secret weapon. It was just like that mother.
That's why you didn't save it for me. Okay.
Like mother, but I just remember it because you didn't know that.
No.
Yes,
wish
I
I'd
gotta
known that.
find it. I'm positive. You, not me. You. Bad man right here. It's a bad dude and a great
A
person.
lot of weight on my shoulders.
No, y'all are both amazing individuals. Do we have one last question? One last question in the back.
Hi, thanks. This has been really great. I have a question. I want to hear more about the storyboard artist role. How does that role influence a film, take a direction of the film? How do you make your mark on a film and bring it to life in that unique way from that perspective?
Okay. I think it depends on who the director is, because if you have a film where the director doesn't have a visual sense where they know what their shots are, I've got a big influence on it. Because if I'm starting with someone that's never done a movie, like I've done Denzel's first movie, Antoine Fisher. I did Channing Tatum's first movie, Dog, co-directed, and I did Michael B. I was the first guy on Michael B's first movie, Creed, through 3, and then he hired other people after me. So you can have a big influence on making them go like, wow, they're really blowing their minds with what the possibilities are with what they can do for the movie. So that's the first part. If you're working with someone that knows what they're doing but doesn't necessarily have a shot list, Ron Howard on A Beautiful Mind. So I came in to help the first artist, and Ron didn't shot list, but we would have a conversation about the scene, and then myself and the other artists would go in, do a layout, and then Rob would give feedback, yes, no, or whatever. That's a way to do it. If a person knows exactly what they want or they're about, and you do it, what you can do is they can say that's exactly it, or sometimes they could see it and say, you know what, that won't work because the location actually won't, the shot won't come out the same way, or if whether they're exterior or interior, it won't work the same way because now I see the longer lens might be used. This building has a different dimension than I thought. Whatever it is, it lets people see. The other thing that storyboards can help in, I was one of the artists on the third Fast and Furious movie, Tokyo Drift. So there was 4 of us on the movie, board artists. So our friend, the stunt coordinator, Terry Leonard, he saw all these storyboards for the final race all laid out, and they had thought that they would shoot it in, I think, if I remember, they thought they could shoot it in for 5 days. And Terry said, nope, it's going to take 10 days to shoot all this, because he could see all the shots. So storyboards can also help you plan. You'll know how many setups can you do per day. The other thing that I find that people use boards for is figuring out what are going to be the effects. If there are effects, what's going to be in a certain frame, what would be practical in a frame, what's going to be the actual location. Will they possibly need to add effects to a frame with the location to add effects to it? What might be all digital in a frame, what you cannot, so it helps you break up what's going to be practical, what's going to be effects, what's going to be a hybrid combination of effects and the actual location.
Okay.
So we help just to have things planned out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Please
you.
give one
Thank you.
last round of applause to these gentlemen right here.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I'll leave y'all with 2 things. The first is just a quick trivia question. In the film, John Singleton usually likes to have cameos in his film. And I'm curious, did anybody notice where he was in this film?
I don't even know.
Anybody?
I came in late. I can't remember. So I'm like,
During the hockey game, he was the goalie.
really? Which would be quite a feat in real life.
So, and I know I've seen him in different parts in different films.
Yes.
And so I always thought that was beautiful, that he did just a little bit of love from John Singleton.
There you
But
go.
now that you know it, can you tell us him at all?
Can
When you
what?
see it, can you tell us John when you see it?
Yeah, you can.
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
go back. It's on Amazon Prime. Give it some streams, and go see it for yourself. And lastly, our last screening will be Thursday, April 20th for Snowfall. Please come out. This is the last one honoring John Singleton one last time, and appreciate you for coming out tonight. It really means a lot. So give yourselves a round of applause.
Thank you.